All right, guys, we're gathered here today, and we're going to do a podcast with a few people on the topic of clients going out their first time, what they're expecting from an elk hunt in the Rocky Mountains. And we have Ryan Fuhr, which we all know him as Dink, growing up with him. Dink, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, you just did. I'm Ryan Fuhr.
Well, that way they hear a voice with the name. And
that's me.
We have John Tissue again.
Howdy doody.
And then also sitting in is Colby Brooks.
Hey, y'all.
Now, John has did a bunch of guidance, so he's going to kind of play whether it's fiction, what is beliefs on hunting, and what is nonfiction. So we're just going to dive right into it. So clients' expectations versus what is reality. And a lot of times outfitters feed clients with a bunch of stuff just to get them to book, and then the reality of the hunt isn't actually there. And what are some things, if you guys were booking an archery elk hunt, what would you expect from the outfitter?
Well, how about this? When you say a lot of the times outfitters feed clients a bunch of BS to get them there, how often do you think that happens?
Oh, I'm saying it happens a bunch.
How many licensed outfitters are in Montana?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Ballpark.
Thousands.
Percent-wise, what's of them are full of shit?
I hope to say not a lot of them, but guys that are getting out of it, guys that are in tight spots, I think that they don't really talk the physicality of the hunt and they're limited on booking people, so they just try to sell it like a used car salesman.
I wouldn't necessarily limit that to the state of Montana only. I'd say it covered, the whole area of outfitting industry.
It's
general.
Business at the end of the day, right? And see, here's what differentiates you, being new to the business, relatively young, and a hardcore hunter, right? From somebody who's, say, been in the business for 25 or 30 years, and they have bills to pay, mouths to feed, et cetera, et cetera. I get both sides of it, actually. I mean, from a business perspective, you don't want to tell people, if the hunting's horrible, right? Let's just say in the whitetail world, if you had CWD or EHD come through and wipe out all your deer, man, you don't really want to say that. You know what I mean? Or if you get, let's just say you're at the Harrisburg Sports Show and a group of 4 guys comes up and all of them are overweight and your hunt is rugged and you know it's rugged, and for them to be successful, they're going to have to lace up their boots and get after it, and you're sitting there looking at them and you don't think they can quite cut it. Do you tell them, look, I don't think you're cut out for me, or do you just say, hey, we'll do the best we can?
I tell them we'll do the best we can for sure.
Right.
But I also tell them that the name of the game on archery elk hunting is covering ground. You have to find cows in heat. If you're not finding that, it's going to be very hard to have that bugling action that you think that elk hunt should entail with.
Yeah.
I think that'd be my number one tip to anybody as far as what to expect going out west. Would be number one thing you can do is get yourself in the best physical condition you can possibly get yourself in, from no matter what state you're coming from.
Right. That's any hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sure.
It's life in general. You're just going to do life better if you're in better shape.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And guys coming from whitetail hunting, most guys that want to go elk hunting, I mean, clients that are coming elk hunting with an outfitter are most of the time coming from the East Coast.
Right.
So that they're whitetail hunters and they've been sitting in tree stands and they don't understand the physicality a lot of times. And I'm not cutting that it's not everybody wants to lift weights and have neck giant to go shoot bow and arrow and kill whitetails. Your heart rate, physicality of like climbing a mountain, the vertical feet that you have to go up every morning is usually a bunch more than a whitetail guy is used to having. They're not, most of them aren't mountain hunters.
Well, they're not. So again, back to perspective, there's so many variables to this. Like when you say a lot of outfitters maybe don't promote exactly what they're selling, right? Or they're a little bit dishonest or not dishonest, or they're business people. But there's a lot of variables involved. Like I said, when it's down to business, at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. If your bottom line's below the black, you're losing money and you're going to be out of business, right? So you have to do what you have to do. And you say, most hunters that end up out west are whitetail hunters. Think of this: 84% of licenses sold in the United States are east of the Mississippi. So that's where everybody lives, and most of everybody hunts within 20 minutes of their home. You know, so when they book a trip with you, that is that quote unquote once in a lifetime deal. You know, whatever the $5,000 or $6,000 that they give you, that's their once in a lifetime. It's probably, I'm just throwing this number out there, but I'm guessing it's easily less than 10%, but probably less than 5% of the people go on more than one elk hunt a year out of state, especially from the east. So they're predominantly all going to be whitetail hunters, and I would suspect that these guys are in better shape now than they ever were because of the Meat Eater Gang and social media and all the YouTube channels out there. Now you got Cam Haines running hundreds of miles, and you got everybody doing what they're doing. The Mountain Ops.
Yep,
you know, you got that whole deal. Yeah, all those guys are doing. So probably if you rewind the clock 10 or 15 years, you probably saw people in worse shape going out there.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Definitely. The calls. Let me tell you, the calls have changed tremendously since I've started in 2004. I mean, you could just go down to the local gas station now and you can pick up a call. Back then, we made our own bugle tubes. If you wanted a solid bugle tube, you made it out of a wiffle ball bat, something of that nature. If you bought something at a store carried, we had to travel an hour to grab a bugle tube in Spokane or Sandpoint, Idaho, and they're terrible. They're little squealy bugle tubes, and the sounds weren't very good. Nowadays, guys are making rock solid elk sounds and doing a lot of bugling and a lot of challenge type of calling because that's what's all over social media. What do you guys think of like how the actual media like plays out in elk hunt? Like, if you were like to listen to any type of elk production on media whatsoever, are they like, what are you thinking? You're expecting elk to be fired up, bugling? I mean, what are you guys expecting to come into a hunt?
What are our expectations of an elk hunt versus what you see on TV or just in social media in general?
I think I can.
Yeah, Josh and E. Sorry.
So
I've never been out there listening to bugling elk.
Yeah, well, as Josh pointed out, I've never bow hunted for elk, but I have hunted the West. Now, me being around hunting my whole life or immersed in the industry, we're potentially speaking to some of your oncoming clients, right? So when they're looking at social media or the Outdoor Channel or the Pursuit Channel or what have you, the first thing I look at, from what I know, and very minimal knowledge, I guess, on elk hunting compared to you guys, the first thing I look at is what state they're in, right? Because it varies by state. You go Colorado, it's over the counter, it's high pressure. I mean, everyone and their brother heads to Colorado and they go elk hunting. So
seasons are 5 to 6 days long, a lot shorter window of just capitalize on.
Right, and so I would expect if I go to somewhere like Colorado to buy an over-the-counter tag and go hunting, I'm going to have to hunt my ass off to even maybe hear an animal, let alone see one or kill one, right? But then if I look at a hunt on YouTube or Pursuit or Outdoor Channel and it's in New Mexico or Arizona, right, that's a whole different ballgame because those are very limited states, very limited tags. Somebody's going to go there. So if we're talking about somebody that's booking a hunt, the first thing they're going to look at as far as how they're going to set their expectations up is where they're going to book their hunt at. If they're going to book a hunt in New Mexico, I would assume that their expectations could be a little bit higher than booking a hunt in Colorado or Montana maybe or Utah or what have you, right? Same thing with Arizona. I think that plays a big part, and that's what I look at. As far if I'm hearing screaming bulls on a YouTube video, I look and see where they're hunting. And most of the time, screaming bulls and one after another is in Arizona, New Mexico, places like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll describe our area for what our clients are going to go through. The first thing that they think of, everybody talks the Northwest has been destroyed by wolves. They've shut the elk up. The wolves have quieted the whole entire woods down. And then second of all, I try to sell the hunt off of it being very rugged in our area, so it makes it less hunters in the area. I mean, that 50% of the guys are out of it right off the gate because they get out of the truck and they're like, dude, that's nasty terrain, blowdowns. Dudes don't want to do it. So I feel that the more rugged terrain that you go to, you can eliminate some of that pressure that you were just talking about in Colorado, those type of areas also. So when you're looking at an area to go elk hunt, maybe look for those wilderness areas, those tucked back in nasty places that maybe not that many people are going and hunting. Maybe the kill percentage is way down. but the hunting pressure isn't there. And with calling elk, you don't want a bunch of people in the woods. Dudes blowing bugles through the brush is the last thing that you want to ever hear on an elk hunt.
Well, I can say this: I have one of my best friends he lives just in Missoula, and he's grew up there, and he's killed a trainload of elk, trainload of big mule deer, and he says the last 5 to 7 years, it is the last. He rides a mountain bike. The last bull he killed was 18 miles in, and he said that's what he has to do to get away from everybody. And this was what you said. It's and you can. I asked him specifically. I mean, I'm talking about the last 2 weeks we talked about it. What's he attributed to? And it's the social media. It's the podcast. Everyone, their brother has a podcast now, and he said everybody comes from wherever they're coming from, and they got an elk call. And they're blowing a bugle tube and, this, that, and the other, and the hunting's getting hard. He's actually finding better success. Just wait. He don't even, not that he doesn't hunt, but the later seasons when the snow starts flying and it gets more rugged, I mean, he can get in on elk and there's hardly anybody around. But that September, October, he said it is just bumper to bumper, man. It sucks.
So I guess my question is, being that I've never been on a archery hunt or booked a guided archery hunt. So I guess my thing is, if I'm scrolling through the internet looking at guides, if I haven't made it out to a sportsman show to talk face to face with an outfitter.
Do you think that's crucial, the sports shows, to actually?
Well, yes, I think it would be a good opportunity to have that conversation with face to face with somebody. But if you do not have that opportunity and you're scrolling through outfitters trying to, you have your heart set on a Montana archery hunt, what are the key points that I'm looking to book something, what key points am I looking for at your outfitter or another outfitter that I am definitely booking this hunt at this outfitter?
Guys come up to me and they're like, private ground, how much private ground? Are you hunting on private or public? And the second that you say public land, you can watch the excitement on their face. They read all the banners. They look at the prices. It meets up everything. And you say public land, and instantly they think about public land in the east. A lot of hunters, a lot of traffic, which that's maybe not it in every area in the west. I mean, John, you can speak for some of the areas.
Yeah, a question I always got asked a lot was, how do you access your hunts? Like, are you walking in, or are you driving in and walking from there? Do you have horseback? And the deeper you can get, like we said already, the better off you're going to find them untouched animals that haven't been really called to that much, haven't really been fooled with. And the deeper you can get, and the better off you are. I've always asked that question.
Yeah, so a guy says, man, a private ground hunt is where a lot of less people, or nobody can just go there out of the blue, DIY guys. So I'm probably going to think that outfitter is not going to have a ton of hunting pressure. And if he doesn't have 6,000 acres, he's not even going to hold one herd of elk, because you're talking an animal that can travel 5 miles from where it fed to where it just went and bedded down. So that's a humongous amount of ground. So back to the area, I would pick an outfitter that has a large amount of area to hunt, and that he can go north and hunt if weather permits it, or he can drop south, that his area is large enough that he can get into different terrain, different vegetation within his hunting units.
That's another good point you could look for when talking to an outfitter too, is do they do base camps where you're in the same camp all week, or are you in a lodge where you can come back and you have the access to go, you went, like you just said, north of the lodge that day, you could go completely 10 miles away in the other direction, or 30 miles, whatever it is. You're not stuck into one base camp where you have to hunt out of base camp by horseback or walking every day. You're not stuck in the same.
When you asked the question, is it important to talk to an outfitter at a sports show? I think for a first-time hunter from the east, it's imperative. What? No. It's almost imperative.
To have that one-on-one.
I would think,
to have that connection.
Yeah, I mean, you can look on the web and you can look on YouTube, but here at the end of the day, you have to keep in the back of your mind, from a first-time hunter, an outfitter is only going to put their best of the best on the web or the YouTube, right? Like they're going to edit all the stuff out that they don't want you to see, type of deal. So, and another thing, I think to be a successful elk hunter with a guide, you need to mesh with your guide, or the outfitter, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like if you two come from two completely different areas of life, right? And you're just constantly butting heads the whole time. It's just not going to work. It's like a relationship at that point. It's a 7-day relationship. I mean, you have
Absolutely.
to, so I think it's really important to meet with an outfitter at a sports show, see what he looks like, get to know him, his mannerisms, this, that, and the other. And then, even if you book the hunt then, and then between then and your hunt, you're calling them or you're texting them, whatever, just develop that relationship, because that is just such an icebreaker right off the bat that, will allow you, and you guys know, whenever you can let your guard down around somebody, you just, you move more freely, right? Well, you just do things better.
And more into that, the better relationship you can establish with the outfitter you plan on booking a hunt with, and the better you guys can get to know each other, the better chance that outfitter has at pairing you with the guide, one of his guides that fits your needs as well.
Right, good point. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I was about to say, that guide should fill that void with that client. Whenever he looks, that outfitter, he makes a decision, it's like pairing you up, and then the guide, when he assesses the client, he's going to look at the weaknesses and strengths, and he's going to put his weaknesses and strengths in there to maximize their time.
That's just not a out west thing. Like, I look at the way that we grew up. We all have the same kind of mentality, and kind of, you place yourself around the people that motivates you.
No, definitely.
And that's just
like-minded individuals.
Yes, and that's not a...
Yeah, and I'm the oldest one at the table, so I can tell you, the older you get, especially for me, the less friends I have, which I don't know if I'm just miserable. but I'm real picky in who I hunt with. I mean, honestly, it's just, I've kind of been around the block. I know how I like to hunt. Aside from family, of course, but when I get invited on a lot of different hunts, and my previous job, it was hunt after hunt after hunt, and I'm real picky on who I hunt with. Like, I want to get along with somebody. I want to mess with those people, because I kind of get after it. You know what I mean? And I'm also the type that'll go with the flow. So if I'm matched up with somebody that doesn't want to get after it, I don't want to ruin their hunt by being a guy that wants to be hardcore. So I'll kind of hang back. You know what I mean? And so I've just kind of learned over time to pick and choose on how I do things.
We have this conversation all the time, John and I, about, okay, well, we have 2 weeks to actually get after it and get hunting.
Right.
And
most people that book a hunt, they're only going to be on a 6-day hunt. So you're showing up on a Sunday and you're hunting Monday through Saturday. You're going to want to make the most out of all your daylight hours to get in there and get after it the best you can.
Yeah.
So,
from the guide perspective, you said about when you were pairing clients with guides, that brings up a really good point from the business side of things, that there's a lot more to being a guide and an outfitter than just knowing how to kill animals. A whole lot more, because at the end of the day, you got to manage people. You know what I mean? So
100%.
Josh is trying to run a business as the outfitter. The guides are his employees, and you can have the best elk hunter in the world. If there were a way to rank them, best in the world, and he's working for you, but he is not a people person, or she is not a people person, it's not going to work out. Like, so the guides, and I've been around a lot of people that went to the guide school, growing up around here, especially, I'm going to be a guide. It's a lot more than just to hunting elk or mule deer and packing out an animal. I mean, there's a whole business relationship that you have to understand, and that sell. You have to be able to sell. And somebody told me a long time ago, 30 years ago, if you're not able to sell, you can't do anything in life. And at the time, I was thinking, who in the hell wants to be a car salesman? That's what I kept thinking. I equated a sell to a car salesman, right? But the older I get, the more I realize that it's right. Everything you do in life, you have to be able to sell at some point. You know what I mean? I don't even know what you do for a living, but you have to be able to sell yourself, or you have to be able to sell a product at some point. And that's the same thing with the guides. And if you, from an outfitter's perspective, you made up that's a great point. You have to pair the right guide with the right client.
Let's talk about you a minute there, Dink, for just a second. You've been molded. You've been in this industry trying to live a life close to the outdoors for quite some time. Clear back from shooting bow, making it a living, to QDMA, to you.
From an early age, I guess I'm one of the few that can say from about 8 years old, I've not done anything in my life except for the last 2 years that hasn't been in the outdoor industry related. So I'm 45. So do the math. I don't know, 30-some years at my point. I've made a living. I worked in the industry some way, shape, or form, shooting archery, owning an archery shop. Worked for bow companies, working for the nonprofit conservation orgs. To here I am type of deal. Yeah. So I've been around.
So you've been molding, selling yourself in this outdoor industry for a long time.
Yeah, I guess. It's funny you say I never thought about it that way. Yeah. No. It's just what I've always done. The older I get, it's easy for me to say that arena is where I belong, right? Especially the older I get now. So when I was younger, in my early 20s, it was hunting and fishing. Man, I was, bloody knuckles, like I said. Every day I was doing something, shooting a bow, hunting a whitetail deer, calling a turkey, or fishing this, that, and the other. And then it was like at some point you start to evolve and you start thinking about the conservation side, right? You want to protect everything that I love so much, everything that allows me to be who I am. And I think from a societal standpoint, we've gotten further and further away from it. Think about it. Less than 4% of America buy a license. Less than 4%. So that's a very small demographic, right? That's a very small number. So there's a lot of people out there that don't want us to be able to do what we do. Not necessarily don't want us to be able to do what we do, but don't understand why we do it and why it's there. So
how we can kill an animal and then love it by adding conservation into it.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, the older I get, it's become more about conservation than it is about, like I say, the bloody knuckles, hunting and fishing every day. I still do that, but and I probably do it more now because I'm involved in habitat management, which I'm year round. There's not a day, I guarantee you, there is not a day that goes by unless I'm sick that I'm not doing something, even on where I live, where I hunt, or for somebody else. It's just habitat management wise, food plot wise, trail cameras, turkeys, squirrels, you name it. With the little kids, it's just constant.
So everybody identifies as something. John was a guide in Montana, and now he works for the railroad. Colby works for the railroad also. I'm an outfitter, and you've pretty much taken the title as like a hunter for 30 years and like dedicated your life as. When do you start to try to sell yourself as a hunter? That's a hard sale. Honestly, and to be able to do it that long is hardcore.
It is, and that's how I know. Like, there's a lot of people start out as hunters and very passionate, and I don't want to say they give up, but life gets in the way, right? And they stop.
Exactly.
And I somebody asked me one time, and I can tell you the person, and I won't, but I can tell you where I was. It was at a QDMA event, and we were talking about a hunting trip, and somebody said, "Man, you hunt a lot. I just couldn't imagine hunting all that time." And I remember sitting there thinking, I couldn't imagine not hunting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And from that day forward, I've thought about that conversation. I wouldn't know what to do when October, November came. Like, what the hell would I do? Like I don't.
I cry a lot.
It's
September again. I'm stuck out here instead of in Elkwood.
Yeah, it's just, I just don't know. So I don't make any excuses for it. It is who I am. I love it, and you know what? I try to get everybody involved as I can. It's just what I do.
It's an ongoing thing, trying to get hunting to the next level. Honestly, because kids coming into it, social media and things do a lot for people our age, and I think guys have money and they don't really can go on these hunts until they're in their 30s. They're established, like you said.
Yeah, I could talk about that too. So I used to keep a lot of tracks, and I used to put in a lot of, when I was let me get this number right, when I was 11 years old, my grandfather bought me a subscription to Field and Stream magazine, a lifetime subscription. And one of the first magazines I got, a guy killed a bighorn sheep with a .280 Remington mountain rifle. And I read that article, I bet 1,000 times. 11-year-old boy from southwestern PA, and all I want to do is kill bighorn sheep. That was all I want to do. My first deer rifle was a .280 mountain rifle. I still have it till today. So when I was 15, I was mowing grass and working for a lady that cleaned her swimming pool and stuff, and I had some money I started putting in Wyoming, because that's the state he killed that sheep in, for bighorn sheep tax. I started to figure that out. Long story short, I put in from 15 to 23, and then I missed a few years back and forth, and now I'm still putting in. Anyway, I've never drawn a bighorn sheep tag in Wyoming.
That's what I was sitting here wondering, if you actually, have you drawn it yet?
No. So when you talk about the money and the dreams and everything like that, I have a hard time with when you see all this stuff on social media and you see all this stuff on YouTube and you see all this, like, you either have to have at this day and age a big pocketbook. Let me rewind a little bit. When I was 15 years old, you could go on a bighorn sheep hunt and buy a tag for $3,500, right? And I remember being 15. Like, that may as well have been $1 million to me.
That's a goose hunt now.
Right, exactly. So now what's a bighorn sheep hunt? 20 grand?
Yeah, 15 for sure.
Yeah, 15,000. So, I mean, when you look at the price of stuff and what it costs to do this, and then somebody from the East who may have the money, and you talk about expectations of an outfitter, et cetera, if you're putting down that kind of money, you should be in shape. You should be ready for this. You should, this, that, and the other.
You would think that everybody would show up in shape, but they don't always have the right terrain to get in shape, and they're always worried, what do I need to do to get in shape? So
stop eating sugar.
Yeah, anything is better than nothing.
Yeah,
there's nothing going to compare you for the mountains out west. I mean, to be honest, nothing's going to get you in the shape that you need to be. But why sit around and do absolutely nothing? Load a backpack up with some chains, get 40, 50 pounds in there, hike whatever terrain you got, jog around. Anything is better than
you don't
nothing.
Need anything. Like people come up with every excuse under the sun why they won't lose weight and get in shape. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I mean, we're in a 15 by 15 kitchen. There's everything you need right here to get in shape. Your body weight and a square.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so you follow David Goggins on
yep,
social media? Just a couple posts ago, he was like, I get emails all the time about people wanting to be fat. They're too fat and want to know what they can do. Stop being fucking lazy. That's
exactly.
100%.
Instead of eating breakfast, go for a run. Instead of eating dinner, go for a run.
I walk
Literally
down the steps
do
and my
anything.
knees hurt and I don't want to go to work.
So that being lazy. So guys spend all this money to go on an elk hunt, and then come midweek, they're like throwing the towel in. They're crying uncle. I mean, so.
But see, that's where you as an outfitter, this is their vacation. This is their time. You can't force somebody to hunt like you.
And that's where the professional part comes in, that you have to learn that. How, by noon on Monday, you should have a pretty good feel of what the rest of the week, how you need to hunt your guy. Because just, the first walk in the daylight, you can hear them breathing behind you, and then by midday, they're tripping on sticks they weren't 3 hours ago. You kind of get a feel of, where this guy is physically and how hard you can hunt. Without even saying anything to anybody else, in your mind that this guy is either we're going to go balls to the wall all week, or tomorrow we're going to have to take it a little bit easier than today and see what Wednesday's like and just keep.
That's a great point, man, and that's what keeps people coming back when you recognize what somebody's going through. Like you say, by noon on Monday, right? Then by noon on Tuesday, you're going to build a fire and hang out a little bit. You know what I mean?
Just pace yourself to where you're still hunting and you're still in it where you want to be, but your guy is still having it it is his once in a lifetime hunt or whatever. It is his vacation, and to just go out there and slay him the first 2 days and they leave on Wednesday or Thursday or quit or say, hey, I got to take a day off. They didn't book a hunt to take Wednesday off to lay in and lick their wounds for a day. You that comes back to your guide and your professionalism. Hey, don't kill this guy because, we got 6 days of this. It's day 1 or 2, and just pace yourself and hunt. You're only as fast as your weakest link, and they're at the end of the day they're the ones shooting. So why butcher them?
Right.
So all of our hunts, John keeps saying 6 days because our hunting outfit, since we've worked together since 2004 with that place, they are 6-day hunts. A lot of places have 5 days. Some are, not a lot are 4, but most of them are 5-day hunts. We offer 6. And on a 6-day hunt, you got to think, you are going to get a crash course in elk hunting. Most of you have not been out west. So you're going to come there, and every little mistake that you make, those bulls are going to pick up on it. And those rookie mistakes, like I said, they're going to be pick up on it and gone. So when you learned to bow hunt, you had to take time how many deer did you blow before you learned to stand up, when to knock your arrow, when to draw back? You have to learn all those timings.
It's almost like taking a youth kid turkey hunting for the first few times. It's like
exactly.
You wouldn't have did that,
Well, tried to spin at the wrong time, tried to draw way too early or way too late. And you always see these hunting channels guys are drawed and they're holding forever. And
people don't realize a lot of that's B-roll.
Exactly.
As a first-time archery hunter that's going out west, what are your recommendations, or what would you tell me that I should be doing to prepare for my hunt, my archery hunt of a lifetime? What should I be doing? Should I be practicing, short range, long range? What skills should I hone before I put this money down on this big elk hunt?
So let's just talk about a shooting aspect first. Anytime you shoot long distance, short distance is going to be easier, correct?
Absolutely.
For practice, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you see these total archery challenges, they have the Western hunter and their shots from 60 to 100 yards. They're not telling you to take 60 and 100 yard shots. They're trying to make you a better shot by shooting those long distances. And then, I'm hoping whenever the chance comes about, the distances are going to be way shorter. Ethically, for an elk, you have to have a heavy arrow set up or you're not going to get penetration. So those long 80, 90 yard shots, if you're not set up, you're not killing that elk. You can 10 ring him and you're going to pump one lung and he is going to run down in some nasty hole, not bleeding. And I'm going to get the rack to you in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I'll find that bull when ravens are on it, but we're not going to get any meat. You're not going to kill that elk.
Well, that's a good point, and that's a great question, like from an Eastern standpoint, what to expect. Being around archery my whole life, I'm a big proponent of, I think, one of the biggest problems with archery nowadays is just social media. There's a lot of good that comes from it, don't get me wrong, in YouTube, but these long shots. Mm-hmm. Animals move. Mm-hmm. I don't care how good you are on a target at 170 yards or whatever it is.
That's a controlled environment.
Yeah, I mean, that is so unrealistic. It's not even funny. Yep. And at one point, and I've had every hunter or shooter under the sun, just tell me how good they are at 80 yards, and it's like, listen, it's way different on a whitetail, on an elk, what have you. So, like Josh said, heavy arrow. You need a heavy arrow for penetration. Yep. If you have a heavy arrow, your trajectory you're gonna have much more trajectory than a lighter arrow. So your yardage or your range, effective range, should be shorter. I'm a big proponent of shorter the better. Being a bow hunter is a responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. It's a big difference than being a rifle hunter. Like, you have to let scenarios play out. There is a line in the sand when they're too far. When you're a gun hunter, I mean, there is a line in the sand where they're too far, but it might be 1,200 yards. You know what I mean? When you're a bow hunter, that line, according to your ability, might be 30 yards, and that's fine. Yeah. But that's the responsibility. That's the key word there of being a bow hunter, is the responsibility. And to be an ethical bow hunter, you need to identify what your effective range is before you go somewhere. But the problem and the misconception with the total archery challenge, I can argue a little bit, because these guys make great shots on 107-yard targets and think they can do it on an elk. Listen, that 3D silhouette is not a live elk. I mean, it's a lot different. And most of the time, you just shot 20 shots before. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're loosened up. Yeah. I mean, like, I get it. Shooting long distance makes you a better shooter for sure, but you need to also make the conscious decision that you're not going to shoot whatever that number may be. 40 or 50
have in
yards.
your mind, me personally, 40 yards is my max.
I used to do the show circuit a lot when this is whitetail hunting, and guys would say it always astonished me that they would talk about the bigger the buck, the further their yardage would be. And this big giant buck, I'd take a shot at him at 70 yards. Well, I was always the opposite mindset.
Yeah, me too.
Why would I want to wound that deer when if I let him walk and he catches most of the time you're talking the rut if you're bow hunting big whitetail deer. I mean, he might catch a hot doe in 10 minutes and be 12 yards. You know what I mean? Like, if I shoot him in the guts or in the front leg, I'm never going to see him again. You know what I mean? At 60, 70 yards.
So pairing up the question with what are the distance you should practice on, I think it goes along with that question of what terrain are you hunting? So me as a guide, whenever I look at a scenario, I'm sitting up on top of saddle or bench, and all of a sudden bull bugles. All right, I'm getting my thermals right. I'm looking at ridges. I'm not looking to jump into bowls because the wind's swirling there. And I'm looking for thick areas. And with those wide open 70, 80-yard shots, in my opinion, I'd say the guide, something happened in that scenario that made that bull come in that far. The elk is only going to come until the cover allows him to see and peer through that calling setup. The second that elk thinks that he can see another elk, okay, so the guide's back there calling, raking, slamming stuff, and he's got the client set up, and usually a triangle if I'm to like set this scenario up in your mind. And the way I do it, I have one guy that I always cover as my downwind wash. He is the guy that is covering our back door, our 6. He's watching. If a bull's trying to sneak around a satellite, it's going to come in downwind and see the calling setup or get a wind of us. The main animal that we're calling in is going to come into an area where the cover stops, and he can look into where the guide is calling, and hopefully he comes past. He comes through that client. And your shots at that distance for us are 35 yards and under.
Like max.
Yeah, it's thick in our terrain, which is great for archery hunting.
Yeah,
and
not only for cover for the shooter, but also, like you said, just like turkey hunting, they come in looking for a hen. Those bulls come in looking for a cow, looking for another bull. It's whatever you're calling, and the thicker it is, the more you can hide, and the better.
So you have to like play a complete scenario. And now we were talking earlier about hunting pressures in area, and you have guys that are making a lot of elk sounds and can get they have access to a lot of calls. And they're very crisp and clear on making elk sounds, but can they converse with a bull? Can they actually converse with them elk? Can they read a temperature? Are they just good at making a cow sound, a locating bugle, a challenge bugle, and they've recessed these? They did them constantly in their truck. They've practiced these noises, but they have no idea in a calling setup how to talk to those elk to get them to respond back. I always hear my guides are like, I just copy what the elk are doing. That's what guides tell me all the time across like the nation. I'm like, I'll talk to them at sports shows, and I'll cue in on little things. I want to see what kind of elk knowledge they have, and they're like, man, I just mimicked that bull, and he fired right back off to me, and I mimicked him again, and we kept cutting each other off. And the bull was probably like, what in the hell is that guy doing down there? Every time I say something, he just repeats what the hell I'm saying.
You think a bull thinks that way?
I do. You're talking an animal that cows can be 25 years old. You go shake a grain bucket for my horses 2 days in a row without grain in it, they ain't coming the third day, I promise you. And you can't tell me that an elk isn't smart enough, because we're not just giving them grain, we're going to shoot them with a bow and arrow when they get there. So I promise you they're going to get smart.
I mean, I think it's reflects back to the same thing when you hunt in the east. If you get in an area you're hunting coyotes at night, and you've been in an area where someone else is calling, you can see the clear difference in the reaction. Same with turkey gobbles and anything else. It's so similar to turkey hunting. It's almost scary.
Yeah, that's a good point. And back to, man, you said what should people practice? That could be another 3 podcasts. How far people should practice, etc. I think people need to become more disciplined in their archery. This will be me being on my soapbox. I think they need to be set up properly. 90% of bow hunters, when I've worked on their bows, are shooting too long of a draw because they want to get extra speed. Speed, I used to tell people, if you can't hit what you're shooting at, then speed just means you missed it faster, right? So shoot a proper draw. And again, talking archers, 90% of archers have some form of target panic. Just acknowledge that you have target panic and start working on it. But when you talk about distance, like, some of the best practice you can do for a hunt is 5 yards with your eyes shut, just feeling that shot, getting that bow to go off, right? And then that mental imagery, right? That mental aspect. And there's a big component to being a successful elk hunter, turkey hunter, deer hunter, what have you, is your mental ability to succeed. Some people just can't do it, right? Because they don't think they can. But you have to have the right mental attitude. If it's climbing the mountains in the west or sitting in a tree stand in the east in 13-degree weather and 25-mile-an-hour winds,
mental toughness.
Yeah, I guess it is a toughness, but you have to have that mental fortitude to know that this is what you want to do and commit to doing it. If you don't commit to doing it, you're not going to do it. And I've seen that so much in hunting, and it's in every aspect of life. But I can work around certain people and then go hunting with them and expect I can have an idea of how they're going to hunt because how they work, and it's pretty much true. You see what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people have they just become lazy in their mind, if that makes if that makes any sense.
Yep.
I don't know any more 13 degrees. I don't even want to go outside.
Well, you wouldn't cut it out west. Don't even sign up. I'm not taking you hunting. I want that guy that'll walk until blisters are popping.
I don't mind
bleeding
walking.
through his shoes.
I don't mind. But
well, I can tell you, there's
in August.
that mental thing, and I feel like I've definitely honed my mind, because when I was younger, I didn't like it. No, I don't like it at all. But when if it's November, and I have a picture of a couple years ago. It was when I got out of my truck. It was 11 degrees and 20-mile-an-hour winds, but I was hunting a real big buck, and I knew that it was the day, right?
Yep.
And I got in the tree stand at 20 after 6 or whatever it was in the morning, and I left at 20 after 5 that evening. I stood on a 19 by 19 platform all freaking day and never saw a deer. Now, it just, when you get the right mindset, you can do things. And that's what allows you to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
And,
absolutely.
Talking about a guide understanding his client, or being a successful Eastern hunter. I've said this before. Like, you have the guy, let's just say you take off work and you have, like you said earlier, Colby, you have 2 weeks to hunt, right? And you take off work and you're hunting in the East. And it doesn't matter if you're hunting with Josh or anywhere. And you go hunting at daylight, and then come 10:30, you start getting hungry, and it's like, well, let's go to lunch. And you go to lunch at 11. You get out of your tree stand, or you leave the woods, and you go somewhere and you eat lunch. And then it's 1 or 2 o'clock before you get back, right? So you got from, let's just say 11 to 2. That's 3 hours. 3 hours a day, all right, for 5 days is 15 hours. For 2 weeks is 30 hours. That's almost a whole nother week of working that you've missed hunting. See what I'm saying? Like, so...
And on that note, we have a farm here in PA, and
can I hunt
it? There can be negotiations.
But we're lucky enough that we're bordered by state game lands. Last deer season, it was last PA rifle season. I know we're talking about archery, but I went, parked my truck, I had my pack on, and I actually took in this state game lands. There's walking trails and there's fire pits. Well, I took my lunch with me, and I started a fire, and I heated my lunch up, and I hunted the whole day. And that was one of the things of, like, what you're saying. A lot of people out in the East, you get together with your group in the mornings, go put on a drive or two, or if you're going archery hunting, you come out of the woods at 9:30, 10 o'clock, you go eat lunch, and then you're back. There's so much time wasted. But there's also a thing, and you guys are all the same age and hunting together younger years, right? There's that social component. That is why you're all friends to this day, and that downtime built on that. Like you talked about what you saw in the morning. So I get both sides of it, but the whole mental aspect, what I'm saying, to be successful, we're talking about success, right?
Yep.
That time spent, like you say, eating lunch in the woods, that mental preparation. And it's a little different, Eastern hunters to Western hunters. I think Eastern hunters, there's a meme I've seen on Instagram. You may have seen it. Like, they have like a sheep hunter, elk hunter, and a deer hunter.
I've shared that.
Yeah. The sheep hunter looks like a bodybuilder. The elk hunter's like kind of in shape, and then the deer hunter looks like me. Short and fat. But, in your mind, you have to be able to succeed.
So... You were talking about sitting so many days on a tree stand and not seeing anything. Now, on a 6-day hunt, if I don't show you an animal, you're upset. You're mad, but you just sat that long on an archery hunt for yourself.
Yeah.
And you expect, because I'm not saying you, let's just say you spent $7,000 on gear in this hunt, and you just sat 15 days without seeing the right buck, and now you expect to pay this money, and we're going to go elk hunting, and you want to kill a bull in 6 days.
Well, that would be let's be real here. That would be the first thing, if I were the outfitter, you, sitting in a sports show, the first thing I'm going to start talking about is success rate. And we talked about it, I think, before we hit record.
Everybody, they come up to me, and the first thing they say is,
100%.
What's your success rate?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. I mean,
book a pen hunt.
Yeah, I mean,
I tell them straight up.
You want 100% hunt, book a hunt and a pen.
There's not an outfitter in here that's going to tell you less than 50% on honest opportunity. I mean, you can fudge those numbers around. You should probably be asking him elk questions. If you want to know if he's a successful elk guide, don't ask him his kill percentage. Ask him what the elk are eating that time of the year, what their mentality, what their habits are. Because if he knows all those things, he's going to go to kill an elk. I promise you.
I think a better question would be, besides what's your kill percentage, how many return clients do you have? I think that'd be a better question than what your kill percentage.
And then everybody's like, let me give you a reference list. And then they handpicked every dude on the reference list.
Handpick it, exactly right. Yeah. But when you have return guys, they come back for a reason.
Ask those questions that get into the nitty-gritty part of hunting. If I know elk, I know how to go kill them. I called 11 bulls in under 35 yards, and blood was not drawn last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when you say you spend this money, they have to understand that this is hunting in 100% wild in an area, especially coming from the east. This is another big misconception. And I've been west but not elk hunting. But when you're an eastern hunter, right, and then you go west for the first time, and you realize how big the west is, how vast these, I mean, miles upon miles. Where back here in the east, you can hunt state game lands, you can hunt anything you want. I can walk. There's probably not an area around here that I can't walk for an hour straight and find a road or a house. Yep. I would bet it's probably 20 minutes, and out, straight in one direction and find a road or a house.
You're averaging between 6 and 20 miles a day, depending on how far you can go archery hunting in the west.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it consumes you when you see how big the area is. It's
not
like,
only the area,
smokes.
but if you actually get a bull elk 40 yards or less, I mean, a horse is coming through the woods with a rocking chair on his head. I caught a bull in 17 yards, and the guy never even drew his bow. I was watching him from 40 yards away. I said, "What happened, dude?" He goes, "Did you see that?"
Just locked up or what?
Yeah, just locked completely up. I said, yeah, I saw it. I also saw you not draw your bow. What happened, dude? He's like, "I don't know. I just watched him." 17 yards, walked broadside right in front of him, broadside.
That's still awesome.
And that just watched, shell shock. Just watched him, man. Crazy.
Yeah. So you call that bull in, and he comes in, and the client doesn't shoot it. Now, if you would call that bull in exactly that same scenario the next day, that client kills that bull. But you're not going to get that same scenario usually in 6 days.
Right, because of mental preparation. Exactly. Right, that client was not prepared mentally.
Mentally ill prepared, and just the vastness of the country, just the whole thing, just everything. He finally seen an elk, and he just watched it walk right by. 17
there's
yards.
A big, as far as success rates in the west versus east, whatever. But there's also some guys that are just flat out killers, right?
Yeah. There's a big difference between a killer and a hunter.
There is a big difference between killers and a hunter, and
been saying it for years.
Yeah, and
honestly, guiding you pick them right out.
Yeah, I mean, and just being able to watch critters your whole life, like, you know what I mean. Like, people ask me in the east, as I've done a lot of R3 type stuff, taking new hunters hunting, turkey hunting, deer hunting in the east, and they say, what's the number one thing to being successful? And I've thought about that. I mean, you can go access or the ground you're hunting, or even look at some of the equipment, but at the end of the day, to be a successful hunter, what I find when I'm sitting next to somebody, they just being able to understand how critters move, what they do, when they should move, when they should draw their bow. That is the biggest reason they fail.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sitting there going, "Don't move right now, don't move," and they're moving, right? Or, "Now move," and they're not moving. It's like,
why aren't you moving? Why aren't you drawing? I'm watching you not draw.
So it's almost unfair, because you get a group of guys like us, or you get a group of guys like the Meat Eater crew, or pick any podcast out there. If they're talking about hunting, those guys are usually above the curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have a passion for it. And for you in your situation, where you're an outfitter now, like I said earlier, you can't pick and choose who's going to pay you to go elk hunting, and that's going to affect your success rate. And that's why you have to be honest and upfront. Like, I guess my sales pitch in the beginning would be, look, success rate is very low. The best chances you have is to get in the best shape you can get. Watch every elk hunting video you can watch between now and when you come hunting with me. Shoot your bow as much as you can from 5 yards to 60 yards. This, that, and the other, if you really want to be successful. And then from a guide's perspective, whenever that person gets there and they decide on Tuesday or Wednesday, or you can tell on Tuesday or Wednesday that they might rather fish, take them fishing.
What comes to my mind is my son. We took him youth turkey hunting last spring.
How old is your son?
Dom's 8, and sitting there, we called these turkeys in, and of course, he's never been turkey hunting before, so you're there. Wait, you're trying to explain to him when is the right time to move, when is and you can relate, Josh, to that.
Yeah, first time jitters, and everybody wants to put. A lot of guys refer to elk hunting to turkey hunting. That's what you refer to it because it's a calling an animal. And if you call a turkey, and most of the times you're going into a solid setup, you sit down and you're not moving much in that calling setup, correct? You're pretty much there until the bird loses interest or he comes in, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So now on an elk hunting situation, it's more of a dance. And it's kind of a misconception because everybody wants to play it as a turkey hunt where you're in a situation where you're based down and not moving. One on an elk, it might be a movement of an 100-acre area. You might move on this bull 3 to 4 times. He comes in and he's trying to sweet talk the cows away from me because I set up a calling setup where I'm a bull and I have 2 cows and one's an estrus and I'm tending it. And this bull, he comes into 60 yards and he bugles. And he's letting these little lovey bugles trying to call the cow and estrus off of me from the hunting setup. And he does this twice. You better move up there that 3rd time and not sit beside the tree or you're not going to kill a bull. And those are learning curves. That's all that learning curve. You're not going to get in 6 days. It's hard to learn. I can go through scenarios with clients nonstop and I tell them, listen, we could talk about this in the truck till daylight to hunt the next morning. And when it comes time to do it, you're going to be shooting from the hip in the heat of the moment, and it's on.
And honestly, you can't really. It's hard to teach experience in 20 seconds or 20 minutes,
or even in an hour conversation. For that matter.
It really is, and that's where, as an outfitter or a guide, you just got to go with the flow, man. It is what it is. Most guys, like you said, John, guys are going to watch a bull walk by at 17 yards because they're in awe. They've never saw that before. They didn't even expect it.
Right. Yep.
You think about an eastern hunter from New Jersey, right? That has 45 deer per square mile in New Jersey, and the average size deer is 140 pounds, and they get out west, and you call a 700-pound bull 17 yards.
Yeah, it steps out of the brush and
with a rocking
it's
chair
walking
on
out
its
for
head.
a minute, just keeps coming like a clown car. How many kids are in this car?
Yeah, right, with
It
a
just
rocking
keeps
chair on
coming
its
and
head.
coming and coming.
I get it, right? Holy shit, what the hell am I doing here? Yeah.
We grew up in the East, so learning to be an elk guide, it was like the first time you see an elk come walking up through the woods, it's like unrealistic.
We can talk about this because you talked about me being lifelong hunter.
Yeah.
And I talked about this when you were on my podcast. One of the reasons that I am a lifelong hunter is, Josh's family had a sports shop back in the day, essentially still do. I don't even know. I'm trying to think what year it would have been.
85 they opened.
I would say 85, yeah. What year were you born?
85.
So
I grew up in the sports shop. First stitches I got was on a plastic 3-wheeler in our 20-yard archery.
Right, and I shot archery down there, and I was in awe of, and to my knowledge, that group of people that your grandpap and your grandma had that went west hunting was the first around here that I knew of that were going hunting. Now, I'm sure there were others or before them or somebody maybe took them, but on a regular basis. And that, honestly, I can say for sure, without a doubt, that's what lit that fire in me, was being down at the sports shop and shooting my bow. Your dad and your uncle and your grandma and grandpa. And, and I remember probably when you were 7 or 8 years old. I don't know. You had coon dogs at that point. I was down there shooting my bow at one point, and you got off the school bus, and your dad was like, before you do anything, you got coons to skin. And I remember thinking, like, God damn, he's 8 years old, gotta go skin his coons.
Yeah.
You know?
Shot everything. My family was going out and they were doing DIYs. And now I'm an outfitter. Yeah. So that is a hard thing for me trying to get people's money to take them hunting. And I'm trying to explain to them, if you go with an outfitter, how much money are you going to save? Are you going to learn knowledge of these calling setups, of this wind? We're going to go over all these things. How much money did my grandparents waste?
But did they waste money? But at the end of the day, it's what you want to get out of the hunt, right? It's at the end. There's 4 of us sitting here right now, and if you said tomorrow, let's go to Colorado and buy over-counter tags,
we'll be ready in 2 hours.
Right? You know what I mean? And let's just go figure it out. I'm in. Let's go do it. Yeah, like bell bottoms.
What about new hunters doing DIY versus going with an outfitter?
That's a good.
Who's that?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I started hunting at 25. There's no way I was going out there to do that.
Right, and that's a good question because I was sitting here waiting to make my point is why, kind of like what Josh alluded to, how much money did his grandparents waste by doing DIY, and they had to learn that territory. Why not book a hunt?
I don't think they wasted any money.
I don't think so either.
I don't either, but if for someone,
yeah,
right, they grew up hunting. For someone who did not grow up hunting, like Morgan's saying, she didn't start until she was 25.
Right.
Where's my beginning point? Why not hire a professional and be like, hey, if you have to go for 1 season or 5 hunts with an outfitter to get a base layer as a beginning hunter, why not learn from someone who does it all the time?
That's a good point, and
really
here's my argument to that. I feel like in everything in life there should be an apprenticeship program, right? If you're an electrician, there's an apprenticeship program. If you're an operator, there's an apprenticeship program. And I feel like when you're doing it on your own, cutting your own teeth, that's that apprenticeship, right? I've mentored, I'm going to take a stab, 24 adult onset hunters through the Field to Fork program at QDMA. From everything from when we would bring them in 2 weeks early and show them what a bow and arrow were or what a gun was. I mean, they had never even saw one, right? So you're right. Having an experienced person is very necessary.
It can get you over that learning curve a lot faster than spending 3 years. How much time do you have?
So here's the thing. Here's what we fail to realize as this group of guys growing up in southwestern PA. Pennsylvania sells anywhere from 800,000 to 1.2 million licenses per year. So you have to look really long and hard to find somebody that doesn't hunt, right?
Exactly.
Now, when you get outside of here and you get in other areas, when you say hunt, I remember one time I was part of a hunting and fishing expo, if you will, in upstate New York, and we had shooting gun. We were invited the public to come in. We invited kids. If you wanted to learn to hunt and fish, we were going to teach you. And it was through a QDMA branch in upstate New York. And I'm throwing this number out there. Maybe 50 kids show up. And I remember we had 22s, we had bows and arrows, and we had fishing, casting, right?
Yep.
And before you fished, you cast at a bucket. And and I remember thinking, okay, we all had our little stations, and I'm at the casting station, and this little boy come up to me, and I said, all right, grab that fishing rod, and we're going to try to cast into a bucket. And he said, what's a fishing rod? Right? So that set in perspective for me, you would have to look long and hard in Southwest PA to find a kid that doesn't know what a fishing rod is. Where this kid came from, he didn't know what a fishing rod was, let alone how to cast it. So when you look at everything as a whole, when you talk about some of these hunters that are coming through a sports show or they've been watching YouTube or they've been watching the outdoor channels, like, I'm 35 years old, I have a bank account, I want to go hunting. You know what I mean? And they book a hunt, right? So you have to take that all into perspective. It's not that we're any better than them or they're less than us. They just started, and you're there to show them.
Right. I like getting those guys because it's like a clean canvas.
They
don't have many bad habits. They don't have a lot to correct. They're like a sponge for information, and they usually listen to what you tell them. So when I get a guy that's like, hey, I'm just learning this, show me what you got. I'm an open book. I'm like, let's get it, bud. Let's go. Those guys I find are more receptive to listen to what you say than someone who's, you know, in their late 40s or 50s or higher, and like, I've been on 20 elk hunts, and you know, I know how to elk hunt. Well, you never hunted here before, so
take somebody
they don't have bad
a clean
habits,
canvas.
Right? Yeah.
So, and then you're taking someone and you're elk hunting, and the first thing you're doing is you walk in the woods is you grab a big limb, John, and pop, and you walk over and you stomp on one, and you're making all kinds of noise, and they're like,
what in the Sam hell is he doing?
dude, we're trying to sound like elk. The only
Dude,
thing that's
you hear
quiet
that
in this
elk over
country
there
is
1,000 yards away cracking and raking that tree? Well, yeah. Well, you don't hear a mountain lion slipping through, cracking every stick he comes through in the woods.
most animals, if they're quiet in the western woods, they're a pad-footed animal.
Mhm.
Elk are loud. Now, they
Especially
can be
during
super quiet if they want to
September
be.
in the rut. They are super loud.
Yeah, so now
a bull
you're-
elk,
Oh,
Bull
sounds
elk.
like a horse walking
Yeah.
through the woods.
a dozer.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And then I've had big old bulls come in, sneaking in,
True.
dead silent,
Very
and not
true.
making noise. So you got whitetail hunters, plenty of experience, and now you're breaking sticks in the woods. Big no-no in the whitetail woods. Now you're going to go in at midday, and when that bull's bedding, and you're going to go into bedding areas.
Mhm.
Another big no-no in whitetail hunting. You don't go in bedding areas at all. So you're going to go in there and you're going to try to arouse these bulls and make them fight, and it's not going to happen unless you know how to converse with them elk. You read their temperature. Say you drop down in a calling setup, and that bull, he's got 15 cows down there, and we're talking about all these guys, DIYs and all this stuff, so he can make 4 good cow noises. He drops down in there and he starts cow calling. That bull could care less. He has 15 cows there already. He doesn't need another cow. He needs a cow and estrus. So you got to set up this scenario for a first-time hunter, and you got to call that elk in. And that bull, he doesn't really want to come in unless there's a setup, a scenario built by the caller, visual and audio. And
Quiet is not the answer for what
No.
you're saying.
so everybody, they get these bulls to come in, and this is where a guide with a lot of experience, you finally get this bull, he's responding to a call, he's coming. Now he's at 80 yards, and they shut up. They're like, dude, he's right there. I'm not going to make a sound. They're scared to move. They're scared to make sound. The bull locks up, walks away. That's where it's good to have that guide and that person that has that experience, because now he's needing brush cracking. That's the time when that bull is needing reassurance and all that sound to close that distance of that last 40 yards so you can kill him. That's where the experience of a guide comes in. When you're that DIY guy, you might not know that little bit of tidbit, and you're not successful. But then again, on Dink's point, what are you calling success? Are you calling it the killing of an animal, or are you calling it going and having a good hunt? Exactly.
And I think that's every client. It's going to vary between every client.
And you better have, if you want to be an elk hunter, your success better be on camaraderie, the experience in a mountain, and a mountain adventure. Success of killing an animal, no. That's probably, that shouldn't rate up there. And everybody, they book a hunt, and they have this ego thing. Oh, John, I got a hunt here in 3 weeks. I'm going to be going out to Colorado or Montana or whatever. So those guys are waiting. Did John kill an elk? If he didn't kill an elk, John's a decent hunter. That place must suck.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we're on the downhill side of this, and I just said this on another podcast, and I caught a little bit of flack for it via email, but I'll stand by it. There's something about, and I'm friends with the meat eater guys, and I'm friends with a lot of the guys that are out there doing it. There's something about the craze that's going on right now with DIY public land. Like, you look on Instagram and it's hashtag public land, hashtag DIY, hashtag, blah, blah, blah. And there's something about like, oh, look at me. And at the end of the day, that's going to fizzle out. It really is. And the cream always rises to the top, no matter what you're dealing with, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad those people are doing it. They should.
How many of those people, in my opinion, are promoting something though?
Depends how old they are. I think if you said 30 years and younger, 80%. I think if you said 30 years and older, 30%. Social media has allowed a lot of people to be fake. It really has.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Been on the inside of a lot of people that have said their elk or their big mule deer or their antelope were DIY, and they weren't. They were private ranches. And that's social media too. I mean, you only post everything you kill. You don't post everything you don't see.
No.
And not only social media, I mean, these pen hunts ruin it for a lot of things too. It's like, oh, well, this guy over here is promising 100%. Yeah, well, where to buy his elk
that's
from?
crazy to me that people don't realize that a lot of when they see that high success rate, that's high fence. I can watch a hunt on Outdoor Channel for 10 seconds and tell you if it's in a pen or not.
100%.
Just with the habitat.
100%.
It's over-browsed habitat. The browse line's 6 feet in the air. Well, it's a pen.
That's the first thing I look at when I watch a TV show. Like, oh, where's the browse line? Oh, it's way up there. Flick.
You got to take everything as it is. But at the end of the day, I'm glad they're out there doing it because it's promoting hunting and it's still in a positive light. And like I said, ride the wave because it will fizzle out. It'll be what's the next thing to do. You know what I mean? And that's with everything. I mean, there's been a fad in golf. There's been a fad in baseball. There's been a fad in...
Pretty much every fad you see fades away. And that's the one. Whatever doesn't fade away, that's what I pay attention to.
100%.
Well, One thing that we didn't really touch on is scent, and it is huge. I book guys, and they don't...
Wait, you mean your scent or the elk scent?
No, our scent is people. It is... They'll show up on Sunday, and by Sunday night, it'll look like teepees in our lodge with ozonics and all these generators running and all this crazy stuff. And it's a misconception with archery hunters back here because scent is huge, and because you're in a stationary place and you're not playing the wind so much, you're playing the wind off a tree stand. Go ahead, Dink.
No, I just can go all over the place with this one.
Oh yeah, this is huge.
So here's it. I'll go 2 things.
This is a very controversial subject.
I look at it.
Here's the science.
I'll go there.
Here's the science.
I'll go there with you.
So I wrote an article and then I researched the article, right? But I have 2 points.
Do you have ozonics?
I do not. Absolutely not. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm predominantly a whitetail deer hunter in the East. So I started to write an article, Wind Thermals and Air Currents, I think I titled it. And then I was like, well, I'm going to change it to like a whitetail nose, like KNOWS, right? So I think scent is everything. I think there's a big difference between a deer smelling you or why it smelled you and why it didn't smell you. So when I set this article up, and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can, I wanted to first, when I started to research why I didn't think a deer smelled you or did smell you, it's like, well, then I have to prove how well a deer smells. So when I started to research that, there's a lot of interesting studies out there. So I'm going to put it layman's terms. So a human smells at a level of about 4 to 5 million olfactory sensors. So the olfactory sensors are the sensors in our nose that allow us to smell, right? So
they're smelling scurf.
Whatever it may be. So
dandruff, skin follicles, that's scurf.
If John would cook bacon over there on the stove, right?
Okay.
All of us in here would smell the bacon at 4 to 5 million olfactory sensors. We could smell bacon. If we were sleeping in the next room over there, you wake up to bacon, the smell of bacon or coffee in the morning can wake you up, right? Yep. And especially in the morning, your senses are heightened. So then you start looking at, okay, well, the next thing I found, German Shepherds. How well a German Shepherd smells. So keep in mind, a human has 4 to 5 million olfactory sensors. The average German Shepherd has 250 million olfactory sensors. So I started looking at some of the German Shepherds in blood tracking dogs or police dogs, right? Yeah. So I found an article or a study on canine police dogs. So
you might know a little bit about dog scent.
Yeah, you might know a little bit about dog scent. So in 9/11, the World Trade Center, they had a cadaver dog, a German Shepherd, that it kept alerting to a cadaver.
Yeah.
Cadaver's a dead body.
It is a dead body. Thank you, John.
I just recently learned this about 2 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So this German Shepherd was alerting to a cadaver, or as John puts it, a dead body. Really layman's terms. And they kept moving some rubble away, and 4 or 5 feet would go by, and they'd not find a dead body, and they'd bring the dog back, and it would still alert to it. So 190 feet later, they found the cadaver. They found the dead body. This dog could, through all the rubble of the World Trade Center, that dog honed in on that. At 200,
amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. So humans, again, I'm going to reiterate, 4 to 5 million olfactory sensors. The German Shepherd, 250 million olfactory sensors.
Yep.
Whitetail deer, 330 million olfactory sensors.
About like my best hound.
About like your best hound. Well,
like you wish
2
it
hounds.
would be.
So let me talk about that, because in my article I wrote, I can't remember what species of hound. It was some sort of trailing hound.
Okay.
I think it was a walker. The New York State Penitentiary, they had an escaped prisoner, and this was back in the early 90s. 3 days behind him through downtown Manhattan, they had one article of clothing through this guy who he was being transferred from one jail to another, and they had an article of clothing. This dude busted out, right? And they had an article of clothing left behind, and they gave it to, I'm pretty sure it was a walker. They gave it to this walker, and 3 days behind him through downtown Manhattan, New York. Now, you know how many people walk the sidewalks of Manhattan?
Yep.
This dog tracked him to an apartment building, and they found him 3 days later from one article of clothing. And
It wasn't Andy Dufresne, is what you're saying.
I have no idea who that is.
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank
He got
Redemption.
away. Went to Mexico.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, that's a good. That's a.
Jesus.
So whitetail
I
deer,
have a question on scent.
330 million olfactory sensors. So now that's how well a deer smells. And some of the German Shepherds now can detect cancer faster than the most sophisticated MRI machines in the country. Like, you can put somebody in an MRI machine, and they might be able to detect cancer. Some of these dogs can come up and sniff people and detect cancer. That's how well they smell. And a whitetail deer smells better. So now
there you go.
Now,
wild.
whenever you have these guys that say, I need, I've wore scent lock, or I have ozonics, or this or that and the other, and the buck was dead downwind of me and he didn't smell me. Well, listen, give me the scenario. Okay, what was the barometer? Where were your thermals? If the barometer was 29.9 and above in November, and it's a bright bluebird sky, I mean,
thermals rising.
Your thermals are rising like they're in a stovepipe. They're going straight up.
It's
So
like
It
you
was
can
blowing
get
towards him, but it was going above him.
it was going above them, right? So they're not going to smell you. And then
100%.
of a morning, of an evening, this, that, and the other. So now, here's the other side. Now, do I think that scent lock and all that work? No, I do not. I don't think you're going to fool an animal's nose. You're just not.
I agree with that.
Okay. Here's the next thing. Now, on the other side. If ozonics or scent lock or whatever have you gives you more confidence to stay on stand longer, or to hunt harder, or to hunt longer, then use it.
Absolutely.
Because confidence will outweigh all that other stuff 100% of the time.
Accuracy by volume.
Yeah, if those guys are showing up and they got their ozonics tents and they're putting all their shit in there, you know what? Tell them good job, because that's what it's going to take. I mean,
if you
are
feel
you
better, 100%.
Yeah.
If you look better, you feel better.
If you're going to
feel
fool,
better, you hunt
if
better.
they say, Josh, am I going to fool an animal's nose? No, but you know what? I want you to be confident while you're out there. Then that's what you need to do.
Yeah. The last thing you want to be thinking about an elk 30 yards or less is if he's going to smite. Shoot the thing. Don't worry about your scent. The last thing you want to think about, if they're confident by putting their stuff in the ozonic tent, freaking build them up.
I don't know, dude. I get that doe and estrus scent that's been in there for a year, and they fire that baby up, and the whole lodge thinks like it. But I understand what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
That confidence, that's definitely where it's at.
100%.
Confidence is. I don't care what you're doing. You can. I mean, so here's another great thing, right? When we talk about, these are way too many statistics that I know, and I'm going to get them. I don't know them.
That's why you're on here.
As fresh as I used to. So I can say this, like when we're talking whitetails again, 75%, that may be a low number, of the record book bucks killed were killed prior to the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Think what I just said, right?
That's insane.
All this technology that we have
It's not made it better.
it's not made it better. It's not made a difference in killing giant whitetail deer. We were killing them with a recurve, with flannel shirts and blue jeans, smoking a cigarette before. I mean, I'm a big whitetail guy. Like some of the Jordan buck is one of my favorite. I mean the Mel Johnson buck. I mean, he literally had his work pants on, his work boots. He had them cuffed up, and he was sitting along a cornfield and shot this buck at 18 yards with a recurve bow. Do you really think he paid attention to which way the wind was going? Now, it may have been going perfect, but it might not have. We don't know. Chances are it was, or I could argue that it wasn't because of pressure, right? Yep. There wasn't a lot of hunters back then. There wasn't 12 million bow hunters, or not bow hunters. There wasn't 12 million deer hunters back then. So over time, these animals have evolved to stay away from us. Exactly. Does that make sense?
They've gotten smarter.
They have gotten smarter.
Back to these elk.
Back to elk not bugle when there's wolves. Back to turkey not gobbling because there's coyotes.
So this technology said that we haven't gotten better over technology. So one thing that we don't allow at our hunting operation, do not allow mechanical broadheads. I make all of our hunters shoot a fixed blade broadhead, and I have a 500 grain minimum arrow and broadhead setup.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Because I have too many times the guys, they come out here and they...
500 grains is heavy.
It is. It's very heavy, but...
I mean, you have to take in consideration I shoot a 27-inch draw. For me to get 500 grains, I got to shoot a heavy arrow.
Yep, and if you listen to any of this Archer Paradox, any of this stuff coming out, heavy is where it's at. I mean, they're getting maximum penetration with high FOCs and heavy splines.
FOC is way more important than a heavy arrow.
And that's
so what's FOC for the listeners?
Front and center.
Yep. That's an arrow. And there's a big controversy over an arrow pushing from the back or pulling from the front. What do you think?
It's got to pull.
It's got to.
It's got to pull from the front. I mean, if you want to shoot well at long distance, or I mean, I'm a big proponent of a high FOC, 16% better.
Yep. Get a heavy. I shoot a nib. I shoot a 90 grain nib and 125 grain broadhead, and on a 250 arrow. And my arrow setup is 637 or something, where in there.
I shoot a 250 grain broadhead. I shoot a 150 grain broadhead with a 100 grain brass insert.
Okay, what broadhead are you shooting, Dink?
Wenzel Woodsman.
Wenzel Woodsman.
Old school 3-blade, sharpen it with a file.
Oh yeah, that's the way I like it. Less moving parts. Everybody wants to blow this stuff up. They want it to have cams. I
don't even think they make them anymore.
Bolts and all their broadheads and more moving parts.
So much
Back to more moving parts. I mean, guys want to go on an elk hunt with horses and this big rigmarole, and when it boils down to it, the more moving parts on an elk hunt or a hunt period makes it harder to be successful.
I'm a big fan of keeping it simple, and I've studied there's a whole nother rabbit hole, but I've studied the penetration thing. I could argue it all day long. But again, keep it simple, right? So exactly. You can argue with me on a whitetail-sized deer, if you hit it in the guts with a 3-inch cut rage or whatever, that it's going to die. Yeah, it's going to die if I hit it with my 1 1/8 cut Wenzel Woodsman, but I might have to track it further. But here's the problem. Here's where I say, why would I risk? Because there comes risk with a mechanical not working, right? Mm-hmm. My 3-blade cut on contact, there's no way it's going to fail. There's no way whatsoever it's not going to cut.
And the risk runs even higher with a thick-skinned game animal like an elk.
Thick-skinned, big-bone animal,
so
right?
I got a story with this. I was guiding, and I had a client that I'd guided for multiple years. He shows up, and he's been with us 7-8 times. He has mechanical broadheads. We have a fixed blade minimum. That's what the outfitter wants. He tells me I have rages set up on my bow. I'm like, man, we're just going to let it slide. I'm not going to say anything. We're just going to not set it up. We're not going to run to a gas station, not going to find broadheads the way the outfitter wanted. We were shut down. I let him slide by. And what the problem was, we ended up calling a bull in, a 350 bull, the bull of a lifetime. He's been elk hunting in Montana for 14 years, and he's been with us for 7. Finally, a 350 bull comes in to 22 yards. He hits a piece of huckleberry brush, and it sends the arrow back farther. And instead of maybe it being a fixed blade broadhead and that broadhead going in back high and maybe walling around and killing that bull, it didn't hardly cut up anything. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't have killed the bull if it would have been a fixed blade, or it would have killed it if it was a mechanical, but I just felt sickened because of it. I mean, if it was a fixed blade broadhead, it had been in there grinding around as that bull moved. And I've actually had clients shoot bulls back there, and it cuts that main artery that runs through the tenderloins and below the backbone. And those bulls don't go 60 yards. And that bull was still running around, and we talked about him on our podcast, the first one that we did. That was the 6x7 that Walker called in. He's still running, and that was where I let a mechanical broadhead slip through, and may have been a different outcome.
You're not going to kill every bull with a fixed blade broadhead. Bad shots happen.
Yeah.
Right? And I read an article titled that. But it is science. It's not.
What's your
the problem with what works and what doesn't work is a lot of people think that it's opinion. So there's Dr. Ed Ashby, the Ashby reports. Mm-hmm. Anybody listening can read these reports. Yeah. Yep. Dr. Ed Ashby spent his life studying penetration on Cape Buffalo. He spent tons of time in Africa. And the most penetration you're going to get out of a arrow is a 2-blade, fixed blade broadhead, cut on contact with a single bevel. So like a drywall screw, right? Yep. You got it sharpened on one side, and as that broadhead enters the flesh and starts turning, the flesh actually starts pulling that arrow in like a drywall screw. When you're pushing a screw into a board or a piece of drywall, it pulls you.
Yep.
Well, the reverse happens with a mechanical broadhead, right? As that arrow is flying, it looks like a field point. That's why they say flies like a field point. Well, yeah, it does because it looks like one. And then when it hits, you think of a drag car, a funny car when the parachute comes out. Mm-hmm. It's slowing that broadhead down. Well, slowing that race car down. When that broadhead hits, boom, the parachute comes out. Right now, It goes from looking like a field point to a 2-inch cut, which is drag. And it's putting the brakes on as it's hitting. When that's the last thing you want it to do. You want it to hit turbo when it's hitting. You know what I mean? You want it to go through, spin it and go through. You want hemorrhaging.
Yep.
So you said
I personally had 3 different clients wound elk with mechanicals.
Yep.
With rages.
And look, I'll be the first to admit, I've wounded animals and lost them with fixed blade broadheads, but that's because I made a poor shot.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying
it can happen.
So a good segue.
For thick skin.
We're talking about wounded animals. So as a client booking a hunt and you see an outfitter that has a wound policy, how do you guys feel if you were to book a hunt and he has a draw blood done?
That's another controversial subject, I believe.
I don't have that with our hunting outfit. We don't have a draw blood and done, and a lot of outfitters do because they don't want to spoil their areas. But I think there's all the hunting scenarios that we've talked about, there's a million things that could go wrong, and there's a small window. We've narrowed it down. There's a very small percentage of it happening right. So what are you going to punish a guy because he hit a twig and he wounded that bull?
Instead of a draw blood and done, I'd have a 40-yard minimum or maximum.
That'd be a better rule than draw blood and done.
Yeah.
So I got a guy, Andy Lipscomb's killed a bull at 93 yards.
It's insane.
There's places that have that draw blood done.
Oh yeah, dude, that's many outfits. It's draw blood. It's over. You're hungry. You're sitting at the lodge.
Yeah, whether you cut your tag or not.
Yeah, they exhaust the day to look for. I mean, they're not gonna hey, you shot an animal, you're done. They're gonna go look for that. Hopefully,
right. I mean,
ethically,
look for it the rest of the week if you shoot the first day. But still, I mean, chances are of getting any meat back, finding it. Especially during archery season,
it's done.
You're not getting any meat.
And guys you get so amped up. You want to kill a bull, and again, that's where the mindset comes in, right? You get guys, and I would be guilty of it, I'm sure. Especially when I was younger, you get so pumped up to go west and shoot an elk, and you call a bull in. You got John calling you a bull in, and screaming its head off or whatever, and it shows up at 45 or 53 yards or whatever, and it's I can make that shot. I know I can, especially because you're used to shooting at a deer-sized silhouette, and the bull looks like the side of a barn at 53 yards. I know I can hit it, right? Mm-hmm. And you make that, you try it, and you don't. You hit it high, you hit it back, you hit it low, whatever it may be. It happens. It's going to happen. There's not a scenario on the earth where it's not going to happen. I'm so tired of people saying that wounding animals shouldn't happen. You know what? It should happen. It's just like when they say hunters should all get along. Guess what? There's not a human on the planet to get along with everybody. Right. We all argue about shit. We're all going to wound stuff. It happens, and as an outfitter, as a guide, it's going to happen.
I think it goes back to what you said about in the 70s, the biggest bucks and bulls were killed in the 70s. Even with all the technology out there today, it's still going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Well, listen, 11 bulls I called in. You know how many arrows got loosened? We keep talking about wounding. How many arrows do you think got loosened in 11 bulls under 35 yards?
You told us none.
1 arrow got loosened. No bulls got shot. No bulls. We didn't draw any blood. 1 arrow got loosened. In the hunting setup, in the setup of an elk call, there's so many things that have to go right to even get that shot to go off. Everybody wants to hide, and that bull starts bugling, and then I can watch my client. They're hunkering down in behind something. I'm throwing pine cones and sticks up there, and I'm like, I'm trying to make the motion of a ridge, and I'm like, get on the center of the ridge, and you know that elk's going to come right down that center of that ridge, and that's where his best opportunity for shot, because that bull's going to look down through there, and he's going to look 180 degrees to the left and 180 degrees to the right, and he can look down in each one of those draws walking down a razorback ridge, and the client's hunkered down in behind a blowdown on the bottom side of it.
Please get in front of it.
From talking to guys like you and watching videos, like I know, get in front where you can shoot, but I've seen guys make that mistake that you're talking about.
Many.
And that's exactly what I would do if I was green.
You're hiding.
Yeah, and that comes from hunting in the east.
In the east.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about elk hunting being similar to turkey hunting, and I've hunted turkeys from Wyoming to Florida.
A bunch of turkey hunts.
A bunch of turkey hunts, yeah.
You sit behind a tree when you turkey hunt?
No.
Exactly.
I sit in front of the tree. That's a good point. But
Do you have a shell on the gun?
Never. Until I'm calling a turkey.
Once it's coming in, you have a respawn from a bird, you are getting ready to shoot, correct? Because it could happen at any moment.
Yeah, when I was guiding turkey hunters, I had a turkey hunter almost kill me one time because he was loading his gun at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it made me think, he loaded his gun, he had a pump gun, and he slammed the chamber shut and the gun went off.
No shit.
Next to me. And it made me think, like, we're calling gobblers, like,
Right.
you don't need a loaded gun, right, at all. And it's the same thing. Like, they respond, when they're coming in. So I walk around with an unloaded gun constantly, and so do my kids. There's no need now, when we're in the heat of the moment, quote unquote, we get ready to go. Like, it's game on. But I just think you're eliminating risk of something going wrong out of the equation. So back to what we're talking about, being equating it to a turkey hunter, and I've said this a lot. I've hunted turkeys, like I said, Wyoming, South Dakota, down south, throughout the Midwest and Pennsylvania. If you can kill turkeys in Pennsylvania, you can kill them anywhere. Southwestern PA.
I've tried to say that for years and years, and people are like, just don't get it.
They don't get it. And some people will say they're like shooting, chickens in a pen. Not here, they're not.
Come on over.
Come on down to Fayette County.
It's harder here than elsewhere.
It's 20
I killed one in
times
Montana
harder.
with a horse brush.
With a what?
A horse brush.
Statute limitations are up, so
Well, I mean,
You whacked it in the head with
I threw it at it and smoked
Merriam's.
him down.
Dude, but back to that, like how I asked you if you were set up, if you were ready to shoot. So you do a soft calling setup. Say bulls aren't bugling. No animals are talking. So your guide, he sets up on a bench, a saddle where there's elk sign. And he's doing a soft calling setup where there's nothing actually responding. A lot of times I look over and Hunter, he's sitting Indian style on the ground with his bow with a arrow not knocked.
Yeah, see, that's that whole not understanding critters, right? That's that whole
Exactly.
very
It's back to it.
experience.
That elk could show up at any point in time. If your guide sets you up, you knock your arrow, you get ready to go, and it's go time when it happens. The biggest bull that I ever called in my life, I look over and the wind is blowing 40 mile an hour. I didn't think a bull was going to come in. The wind's blowing 40 mile an hour. There's a bunch of rub lines, so I start rubbing, doing a little bit of bugling, squealy stuff, doing some cows. Like, I am setting up a scenario where I'm a young bull and I'm running a cow around, and this bull's...
I remember those days.
That's the easiest scenario for me to tell people. Think of a 17 or 18-year-old boy that's just as horny as can be, and that's your elk. But then give him that 30-year-old or 40-year-old mentality of cheating on his wife when he runs in someone else's house. That's how it's going to go. So we call this bull in, and this client, he is over there, and he's taking his jacket off. He's not ready. We're calling, and the bull shows up, and he's folding his jacket up, has his release on. I'm back to throwing pine cones and sticks. Finally, I get his attention. He sees the bull, and he goes into this mode like John was talking about, the client freaking out. I call it fumble fucking. Sorry for saying the F word on here, but it's the best way to say it. He range finds this elk 300 times. I mean, finally gets all his stuff back together, arrows on, and he's range finding, and just goes into la land on this elk coming in.
I could talk about that too quickly when bow hunters range finding animals, especially in that scenario you described, right? So it's coming from the tournament side of things. Like, I have to be able to judge to the yard or half a yard even,
Do you think it comes from a practice? Like, as you an archer hunter, you're like, I have to know my range. I have to know it.
Yeah, but I think it becomes from knowing your equipment better.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
If we're going to limit ourselves to 40 yards, if you really, really know your ballistics, quote unquote, your equipment, right? So you know if it's a 40-yard shot and you know you can hold your 40 pin at 36 and still kill it, then it doesn't matter, right?
No.
So what I do in those scenarios,
the bull was at 27.
27 yards, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I'm an inch high of my 20-yard pin, it's over. It's dead.
Yeah.
And it's the same, like if I have time, I'll range it to the yard. But in that scenario you're talking about, I'll draw my bow and look around my peep and be like, it's not 40 and it's not 30, so I shoot it for 35.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, because if I'm shooting 280 feet a second and it's not 40, I know it's not 40, and I know it's not further than 40, and it's not less than 30. That leaves me at 35, and I'm shooting 280 feet a second, and I know at 280 feet a second, at 40 yards with my 35 pin, I hit 2 inches low, and my 30 pin, I hit 2 inches high. I'm killing that animal. I'm killing a turkey at that far, at an elk. So
you're not going to tell me the excuse I used the wrong pin, because that's not going to fly, right?
It's not going to fly. Well, no, it's not going to fly. Most of the time people miss when they say they used the wrong pin. They probably didn't. The animal ducked. Yeah. Wild animals have this uncanny ability to get out of the way of an arrow.
Or they misjudge the distance.
They could have. I mean,
there's a
but
big
it has
distance.
to be by, honestly, for most people, and they would have to be off by exactly 10 or 15 yards.
And in an elk, it's even less critical than a whitetail.
Exactly.
Right,
that's why
you get somebody, the average draw length, is probably 28, 29 inches, so they're shooting 280, 290 feet a second. I mean, you got to be off by 10 or 15 yards not to hit that animal. Most of the time, the animal is onto you. They saw you draw. Mm-hmm. So there's a big difference shooting at an animal that isn't onto you, right? Just feeding, head down, not even there. They don't hear the bow go off. The bow goes off. Maybe they hear the arrow halfway there. To an animal that sees you draw back, is wide alert like this. Now it's waiting to spring, out of it. It's going to jump out of its skin when that bow goes off, and it's 35, 38 yards or whatever. So, I mean, a whitetail can drop 16 inches. An elk can drop 12, 16 inches easily.
A lot of variables.
Right?
So, and you're talking about an animal that's calling in, and you're dealing with a mature animal, so we're probably dealing with 6 to 9 year old bulls. So when they hit that zone, they are like, did I mess up? Did something happen? They come in and they are in lockdown. So they're
looking for that cow.
They're looking for movement, whether it's a hunter or a cow. They're looking for reassurance, something in that.
And when you're drawing that bow and they see you, they're okay. They're looking like they see movement. Is that cow that just called me here?
Yep.
And then now they're looking for the next movement. You know what I mean?
That's where your guide has to instantly see that bull stalled up and something's happened. And that's where a lot of problem comes in. The guide sets up too far behind the client.
I would bet that a high percentage, 70 to 80% of wounded animals is a shot that was because the animal moved before the arrow got there. Not necessarily that the hunter made a bad shot.
So you have a first-time archery hunter out there.
A lot of times.
And you have somebody that has seen a little basket rack 8-point whitetail. And then you
4x4.
Yeah, and you get a huge elk within 40 yards, and they're full draw, and the only thing that they can see is that massive rack on their head, and
even a raghorn looks big.
But and then they're looking at the elk, and they shoot and they miss.
It happens so much.
There's nothing you can do.
Take that bull you shot during rifle season last year that had a broadhead in his face.
I called that bull into fifth. So we were talking about
a lot of people just look at their horns and end up focusing on their horns. Ting arrows through the horns, ting arrows right through their face.
You were talking about everybody needs to have a range. I called that bull in, and he would not commit for the last little bit. Well, now we know because he was shot in the face with a bow and arrow probably 2 to 3 years prior to us killing him with a rifle. But in archery season, I had that bull responding, and he would not commit to the last 40 yards for a shot to be done. So I could sense that the scenario was wearing down, and he was losing interest he's like, something's not happening, there's not an elk. So I'm motioning to my client, and I usually have an apprentice guide that comes with me, and I'm like, go to him. I'm making motions. Go till you make a shot. Go till you make a shot. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, run at that freaking bull until you get within bow distance and shoot him. And they're like, dude, run at him? Yeah, get in a good cover and move into that bull until you can make a shot. So he got within 50 yards. That bull seen him. Shot didn't happen. He refused to shoot over 50 yards. The guy was a killer. I watched him shoot all week at our outfit, but he drew that line at 50 yards and he would not shoot that bull.
Good for him.
Yeah, and we're talking about these scenarios where guys are just they're freaked out. Another one that I had, he's like, what are we going to do? We're going to try to call that bull out of his bed. I was like, no, sir. We're going to go right in, challenge bugle, freak him out at the last minute because we've already called him in once. This is a last-ditch effort. Whenever it happens, I'm going to move out of the side, and you're going to shoot this bull, and it's going to be like under 20 yards. And he looks at me like, what are you talking about? You got 30 seconds to make a shot, shooting from the hip. What do? Do you make it or break it? This all happens, and the shot comes off at 18 yards. Now, he tells me he shoots the bull in the neck. He missed it. I'm terrible about sitting waiting for wounded bulls. And on that situation, he told me he shot the bull probably in the neck, and I was like, oh, man. We had to let that bull go 4.5 hours. Snuck back up there, walked right back in, replayed the scenario. I walked up to a dry stump, pulled the arrow out.
Probably still alive today.
I actually bugled right before dark as we was climbing down off the mountain, and he bugled back at me. And you could tell because he had this real nasally sound, and that was the same bull that we killed in that late rifle season. So, Dink, what do you think? Bring in a guy that killed a lot of big bucks, killed a lot of successful whitetails that are hard to kill. What do you think you need to do after all this? You're a more experienced bow hunter than me.
Yeah,
and I'm going to guide you.
I would come out and listen 100% to you. Like I know what critters do, right? But I don't know what elk does. Like, I mean, I'm going to rely on you. I know topography. I know wind. I know thermals. At the end of the day, if I'm not listening to you, I'm probably not going to be successful.
Some of the pretty much all of the most successful hunts I ever had guiding was guys that showed up with the mentality of, how can I help you as a guide help me as a hunter?
Yeah, exactly.
And
the second thing is bring work ethic, right?
Yeah.
Be willing to go hard. Like, no, I'm going to sweat my ass off. No, I'm going to be tired. No, I'm not going to eat well. That extra
plan on losing
effort.
weight.
Yeah.
If you show up with mentality, I'm leaving here later than I came, there's a higher chance we're killing something.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That should be your selling point.
My selling point is you give me you give me 6 days of hard hunting, I'll give you elk eating for 365.
Yeah, elk eating, but 6 days of hard hunting and minus 15 pounds on the scale.
Yeah.
Good
so
stuff.
Colby, tell me your
final thoughts.
I think my biggest takeaway is if you are planning to do this, meet these outfitters, you have that money saved up that you want a hunt of a lifetime. You need to get out, talk to these outfitters, establish that relationship. I mean, if I go and talk to somebody and I'm like this guy is just the vibe that he's throwing out, like, I'm not going to go with him. I mean, I'm not going to give him my money whenever I can come to you and talk to you and be like, you know what, he's me. He is the same mentality, and I think you just jive off the beginning. I mean, that's my takeaway.
I mean, we didn't cover a lot of,
No, we run around everywhere.
Every single rabbit hole, but
that's how I like it.
It's a good basis of what, what you might want to ask and where to start at.
My last take to it is the success of a hunt probably isn't based around the kill of an animal. It should be camaraderie. It should be hunting ethics, the camp life, the experience of the hunt, the adventure. If you're basing it around completely a kill percentage, you're not going to have success, period.
That's a good closing. We're going to close her out right there. That was a good ending. All right, this is us. Over and out.